Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Trevor Mauch on the show. Trevor, welcome.
Chris, what's up, dude? Good to reconnect with you, man.
It's great. And we were just talking before we hit record that I'm not as nervous talking to like a CEO of a big software company because I went to CarrotCamp for all my listeners. I went to Roseburg, Oregon, probably a month or so ago at this point.
Yeah.
And I know the episode is going to go live in a couple of weeks, but still, I've got my carrot bottle here for those watching
there
on YouTube.
Is.
I am a diehard carrot fan, signed up for the products and everything, but I really loved connecting with you and your team because you guys were so genuine, down to earth, the energy. You weren't even trying to like sell us on the product or anything. You just wanted us to experience the environment and the small community that you're a part of and you contribute to. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for us, for those in my audience who aren't sure what Carrot is just yet or who you are? Go ahead, man.
Dude, yeah, Chris, first of all, man, I appreciate you having me on here. I know before you came to CarrotCamp, when I saw your name come through, I'm like, cool, I'm going to go follow Chris. And dude, you're insanely active on social. Your podcast is great. And you're years ahead of your time, man. So I'm just pumped to be on here with you. And that you're sharing wisdom as you're gathering it and gathering it from other people. It's a big deal. So thank you for the invite. Yeah, I'm Trevor Mauch, a company called Carrot. You guys can find us at carrot.com. And in a nutshell, I'm an entrepreneur. I run a software company today that serves just shy of 8,000 real estate investors and real estate agents. So we're kind of that company that bridges the gap between the retail and the wholesale side of the transaction. We have a ton of flippers, ton of wholesalers that use our product, an increasing amount of agents. But what we're really known for is helping people generate motivated house sellers online through what we call evergreen marketing. If you're to do a Google search, sell my house fast, insert whatever city, you're probably going to find a number of Carrot sites at the top attracting those leads. But at the higher level, like away from the business side, man, and we'll probably dig into some of this stuff. What I'm really passionate about is helping to prevent entrepreneurs from going through what I've gone through and maybe we'll go through again in my life, but building a business that traps you, right? Like we as entrepreneurs, we want to build a business probably for similar reasons. We want some freedom. We want to grow flexibility, grow our finances. And like many of us want to make an impact with our time here, with our business and use that as a vehicle. And all too often we kind of, take the bait from the gurus online about whatever type of business it is. And we end up building businesses built off a hustle that trap us and never actually end up giving us that freedom. We might have the finances, but no time to use it. And then we never end up making an impact. And we sit back in 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years after starting that company going, man, I'm making some money, but why am I doing this? And I've been through it and I want to prevent other people from going through that as well.
And also for everyone listening, go check out Trevor's podcast, the Carrot Cast. Really great content. You don't even talk about real estate all the time. It's more the mindset and exactly what you just mentioned. And I see that little thing behind you. I guess, what is it called? The canvas as an entrepreneur. Yep. The most important thing isn't money. It's complete control over your time. And I have mine here that you gave us at CarrotCamp on my wall.
There we go, man. Winsies.
So we got that up here too, because that is so true. And why we do what we do is so we can have more time for our families. And I really appreciate the message that you're sharing, because prior to listening to you talking about that, I was going down that path of, I want to make 10 grand a month, 30 grand a month. 50, when is enough? And understanding that, hey, as long as you've got flexibility, finances, you can pay your bills and then you can spend that time with your family. That's what we were really in this for. So thank you for that message. I really appreciate you driving that point home constantly.
How much time you want to spend on that, but it'd be kind of cool to start there. Cause I remember when I remember before you came to CarrotCast, you had posted, it was either a message to me or an IG story or something like that around that topic. And I'm like, man, that one right there is probably the most, the biggest message that most newer entrepreneurs, whether you're a real estate agent, investor, starting an online business, like it doesn't matter. Yeah. Most people have that driven into our heads of success equals these things that we see on Instagram, the cars, the vacations, the time off, whatever it is. And those are all amazing things that you could buy if you wanted to, as you get the finances. But what ends up happening is we end up buying these things, or we end up hitting an income level that we said, well, when I hit 10 grand a month, or when I hit my first 4,000, or when I hit 100,000 a month or $1 million a month, you think the clouds are going to part, the angels are going to sing, and it doesn't. And I've heard this from so many other people too, Chris, that are way beyond me in income. Our companies make 8 figures a year, well into the 7-figure net per year. And if you'd have talked to me about that 10 years ago, I'm like, no way. Like, no way I'm ever going to be able to be a part of building something like that. And if you would have asked me 10 years ago, I would have said, you know what, man, if I'm making $2 or $3, $4 million a year net before tax, I'll be doing all these things. I'll have the fancy car, and like my life will be changed and everything will be better. And does money make some things easier? Yeah, it does. I'm not going to lie about that. It definitely does. You can buy your time back, get assistance or an assistant, like you've got assistance. You can have resources to do things that you want to do. My wife and I, she loves going to concerts. And back in the day, we would always go like, let's try to find the kind of cheapest concert ticket. And now we just always do front row. It's like, okay, cool. If we're going to go to the thing, pay the $500 and get the darn front row ticket, because we're probably not going to go see them again. Like those kinds of things are things that money can help with. But what money can't help with is fulfillment. It can help you be a gauge with success, but money really can't help very much with fulfillment. And fulfillment comes from inside of measuring your worth. Are we measuring our worth on this moving yardstick of numbers, of a revenue goal that, when you hit 100 grand a month or whatever your number is, you're around someone else who did 250 a month or $1 million a month. They're like, oh man, I guess I need to go for that now. And happiness doesn't increase. I think the data is, what is it like after $75,000 a year or something, every dollar you earn has a diminishing returns of happiness. And once you start earning enough money, it actually is more of a quote unquote burden. I know it's first world problems, but now you have to spend time managing your money, right? Which is an amazing thing. I'm blessed to be able to have to think about, but there's a point of diminishing returns there. So that's when we shift to impact. That's when we say, okay, if I am going to keep growing my business, if I am going to keep going for bigger goals, I learned a handful of years ago that for fulfillment to be realized, the growing of the income, the growing of the goals can't be tied to ego. It can't be tied to how's it going to help me anymore. It needs to be tied to how am I going to help others. And as soon as you do that, man, fulfillment pops. And then your business, you want to grow it more because the impact is apparent and it's actually a fuel for that.
Yeah, I just wrote that on my whiteboard yesterday because I was we talked about this a little bit. I may have mentioned this at CarrotCamp I don't know why I'm feeling this false sense of accomplishment. Like I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but I'm getting a little complacent because I have all the things that I want and I need, and I can afford to go to indoor skydiving if I want to, or, hire an assistant, but I need to get it past just me. So I wrote down my why is to be able to provide friends and family with those millionaire experiences and improve the lives of everyone that I impact. That way it's not about me anymore. It's about the people in my life that I care about and even others. How do I impact them positively? And that will help me achieve more because like you said, the finances, the freedom, the flexibility, the more you're able to earn, the more you're able to give back to others and build communities and things like that. And you did a really great job of explaining that when we were there in Oregon, just showing some of the local businesses that you've poured into. That was really cool. Like the brewery that we stopped by where the bus driver was like he was secretly the guy that you were talking about the whole time. Yeah. Who owned the place. That was so cool to see. And you're really out there living what you're preaching. So that opened my eyes up. And I just wanted to share that with the audience here today, that it's not all about just the money and earning more for the sake of doing it. It's about the purpose and the meaning behind it and what you want to do with the finances that you're able to obtain.
Dude, I appreciate that big time, man. One thing you mentioned, you said a false sense of accomplishment. I want to kind of go back to that a second. And this is something for me, Chris, I historically have not been an amazing celebrator of my accomplishments, right?
You just, what's next?
Yeah, exactly. As someone who's ambitious, for me, as the founder, I like the game. I like the chase.
Right.
But I don't really enjoy as much catching the thing, and it took me years and years and years to figure that out, that I want to learn how to grow, but I really don't ever want to catch the thing. But I was always tying my happiness to that thing, right. Even though I didn't really it took me years to figure out I didn't want to catch it. I'm in it for the growth. Right. And so when you said false sense of accomplishment, like I would sit in that, dude. Like it's not false sense of accomplishment. You have accomplished amazing things. Like some of the things that you're able to do with your time, following you on Instagram, and you're showing all the time that you had bought back. And I remember a couple months ago, you were saying, I might've bought back too much time because now what do I do with it? Right.
Right.
And I think that's an amazing accomplishment. And I think that's something you should sit in. That's something you should celebrate. And you should really pull back and go, man, you know what? I learned how to do this. And usually people do it opposite and backwards, that they end up growing an income stream that's bigger. And then they have a massive pain point. And this is kind of like how it experienced with me. I'm like, oh, shoot, I did that wrong. And now let me go figure out how to buy back time. And so I think it's an amazing accomplishment that you have had success. And you're also stepping into the fact of like, you know what, let me also at the same time enjoy it more and learn how to buy back more of that time and enjoy it. And if you really love it, then you're going to then find more opportunities to go out there and grow more if you want to. And growing could be income wise, growing could be impact wise. And that's your choice in this next phase.
Yeah, I appreciate you highlighting that. And I guess the interesting thing with social media is that it's a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing in that, I found your podcast. I caught on early, I caught that, not to get stuck in the trap of earning more money for the sake of doing that and then building a business that I don't love. And so I was able to create this thing where I have an abundance of time. I have systems in place and assistance, but I guess comparison is the thief of joy in that, like you said, well, that guy's got a bigger company. He actually has a real team. She's doing really well. I only have 2 VAs and an executive assistant. And one of them that I brought on didn't even work out, 2 weeks later. So Ambition, the book that you gave me by Seth Bueckley, one of your friends, and I guess you said kind of a mentor in a way to you, that book really struck a lot of chords with me because it talks about, like you said, we're like the dogs chasing the car. We wouldn't know what to do if we catch the car. And honestly, the fun part is the chasing, the journey, the growth. And so making sure that we're always challenging ourselves and understanding that it's not like we're going to magically get to that goal that we have and be done with things. The bar just changes. And so we have to continuously go on that journey,
Dude, one thing that Seth mentions in that book too, that the book you mentioned, Ambition, that this phrase always sticks in my mind. I was just got off a call with Seth, one call before this one. And in there, he has a phrase that's something like, we think that fulfillment is on the other side of success or on the other side of achievement. And I'm going to butcher this. You might know it better than I, because you read it recently, but we think that fulfillment or contentment's on the other side of success. And it's actually not. Like, man, I'm butchering it, dude. He said it. So do you remember what it is?
I have it over here somewhere. Let me see.
Oh, he's going to kill me.
We think that it's just like what you said earlier, how we think that the clouds are going to part and there's going to be like rainbows and music and magical stuff and unicorns, but that's not how it is. We constantly are seeking and learning. And there were so many great quotes in that. Just on ambitious people in general, we're just wired like that. We want to do more. We want to achieve more. Like you said earlier, you don't really celebrate the wins. You get it done. And on the outside, everyone's like, dude, Trevor, you need to take like 3 days off and celebrate this win. Yeah. And you kind of maybe shrug it under the rug, like, it's no big deal. I appreciate it, but we've got other goals that we're working on.
And it's something I need to get better at. Like that's where I want to admit that I need to get better at it as well, because for the founder, for me, I'm not built off of the income as the goal. Once again, it's the craft. I like working on the craft. But at the same time, those around you really, really need it. And so do we as founders, right? It's just easy to move to the next goal. And so that's something where I've kind of baked in some better processes now with my wife and family and also my team to go, hey guys, like we've got to remember to call these out, because sometimes I might forget to call that out. And I'm not saying that's a healthy thing at all. That's a trait that I want to continue to grow on and work on. And here's an analogy. I can't remember if I said this at CarrotCamp, but here's an analogy that I like to keep in my mind as something to continue to remind me of how the journey should ideally be. And I find myself in it a good bit of the time, and I find myself in it sometimes not in this, and I think Seth kind of talks about this a little bit in the book, but life in general, when we're chasing goals, you kind of picture yourself on an ocean, right? And you see the horizon way out there, and the horizon looks like it's a fixed spot. Like when you're sitting there right here, I can see the end of it. It's right there. Right. But then as you get in the ship and start sailing, you never reach the horizon. It's always moving. And so if we're basing our happiness or self-worth on hitting that end point there, we're never going to be happy, because we're never going to hit the end point. It's always going to move as we advance through, as we surround ourselves with more successful people. All of a sudden it's comparison game. Like you said, the number moves, or we hit this number. We realize it didn't open up the things we thought it would in life. It didn't solve these problems inherent in us from a child. Like, the goal moves. Well, maybe the next number will, or whatever it is. And so instead I said, well, we're still on a ship. There's still a horizon out there. We have to recognize that phenomenon is going to happen, that we're probably going to have some sort of goal out there that's a moving target, that as we get closer, it's going to move. The key is we shouldn't be basing our happiness or worth off of that thing. Just recognize it's there and recognize that it helps pull us forward. But now instead, put inside of that ocean some islands. Okay, we've got an island over here and one over here and one over here, and they're kind of just dotting out there. And go, okay, I recognize the horizon's out there. I'm wanting to go out there. It's your $1 billion, or it's $1 million, or it's be able to retire at 30 or 40 or 60 or whatever that thing is, right? And then you go, cool. Well, what's closer to me that doesn't move? Something that's fixed, that is stable. Well, this island right here, that thing's not moving. It's specific. It's 30 miles away. It's blah. And go, cool. There's a goal. It's a very specific goal. I'm going to sail towards that goal, recognizing the horizon's there and it's going to move. And I'm going to hop out. Once I get there, I'm going to look back at all the distance that I came. I'm going to go, man, look at that distance we came. That's amazing. Celebrate, have a little party, and then get back on the boat and go, cool, where's the next island? And then you just keep on doing that. And the tricky thing for many of us is to rather than stopping at the island, getting out and celebrating and looking back and being grateful for all the distance we came and soaking it in, it's way too easy just to go, oh, there's the island. We're waving it by as we're passing by. And right. I think that's something that I want to work on better. And many of us probably can too.
Yeah, that's such a great example. I remember that in the book. Just the horizon always is moving. You can only see as far as you can see. And once you get there, there's more. And I also have heard the example of, we see the summit of the mountain that we want to climb. And then as soon as you climb that mountain, you realize there's actually a bigger mountain that you couldn't see from the first mountain. So just When does it ever end? And so setting those little checkpoints or milestones to celebrate with your team. Like you said, sometimes the founder does need it as well, but the team needs to know, hey, we're making progress. We are doing the right things, and we're celebrating the wins along the way. Otherwise, it just can seem daunting if you look at where you want to go and you don't take the time to look behind you to see what you've accomplished. You can feel like you're spinning your wheels,
Oh, big time. Big time.
So can you talk a little bit more about that business that you built? I know you said you built a successful business. You were earning six figures in your mid-20s, and then you realized you just created a monster that you had no time. It wasn't exactly what you were passionate about. I'd love to see if we can help some people avoid that mistake of just chasing the money without being intentional about the type of business that they're creating.
Dude, 100%. So give people some context here. So I graduated college in 2005. I got married in 2006, moved up to Portland from small town Oregon. And by that time, I had started to get into the business world a little bit. I bought a rental property there near college, a little 4-unit building, literally Carlton sheet stuff, right? Like the course, it was there. And my dad said, you don't have to pay for this thing if you just buy a property using it by the end of the year. I'm like, oh, shoot. Cool. So I did. It wasn't none of my own money. It was a few $100 of my own money, but still, I still own that property today, and it cash flowed from day one. And so that was my start in business. What was getting interested in real estate and seeing how it could be a great vehicle. And then actually, Chris, I wanted to be a landscaper when I was in college. So me and my baseball buddies.
I heard that on your story the other day.
Yeah, dude, I design stuff. Like, I love the design part of it. I'm like, man, I'll roll up my sleeves and get the work done. And I like that too, but I don't want to do that every day, but I'll do it every now and then in design. So we did a handful of projects, and I'd wrote my baseball buddies in there and we'd hammer it out. I'm like, okay, did those, and I don't want to do that anymore. And we moved up to Portland, and I started working with a mortgage broker up there. Mortgage broker was my uncle. And he gave me, a little desk there for $1,500 a month. And that was my income. And I'm like, all right, I've got a year to figure this entrepreneurship thing out, because I can't pay my bills in Portland at $1,500 a month. And my wife is going to school, and we're not taking out student loans. And so that year, I paid my taxes on my credit card. Don't do that, because I went in about $15,000 in credit card debt, and I didn't realize that when you pay your taxes with your credit card, they charge you the extra fees on top of that. Had all kinds of mistakes. You're probably asking, like, if I only made $12,000 or $15,000 that year, why did I even pay taxes? Because I didn't get tax advice. I had all the the self-employment tax I was supposed to, like a bunch of bad stuff, just wasn't planning it out. Yeah, but a couple of things that were amazing that year that led into me creating a business that was a business of my dreams for a short period of time that then became where it wasn't, was I was looking at my friends who graduated college. They all got really, really good paying jobs out of college. They were mechanical engineers and nuclear medicine technicians at the college, or, whatever, just like really good career positions. And they would get paid 65, 75 grand out of school. They've got the fancy new truck. And here's Trevor with the marketing degree and a rental property that cash flows, but doesn't make me money because it all goes to pay for roofs and repairs and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there with a job that made me like 15 grand in the first year. And I'd go back home, for holidays, and we'd all be talking, and they'd have their nice new cars. And they're like, "Hey, Trevor, what are you up to?" And it kind of became this running joke with my friends and my friends' parents for years, where first I would try to explain to them, well, I'm like doing this, I'm found the internet and I've like figured out how to kind of do some things with the internet, and I'm doing some consulting. I didn't know what I was doing, Chris. I had no clue what I was doing on marketing consulting. And I'm trying to like do some real estate stuff. And it just sounded like it was all over the place because I was. And eventually I'm like, you know what? I'm confident it's going to happen. I have no clue how it's going to happen or when, but I'm confident that I'm going to get where I'm going to go because I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop. And so the joke was, I've got a plan. That's all I would tell people. I've got a plan, guys. Okay. Like I've got a plan. Yeah, it's going to work out. I've got a plan. And they would kind of ride me and joke with me for a while. And then years and years later, of course, when things started to be successful, I'm talking like 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, where it was outwardly people could see, man, he's got something like really going on, that people go, hey, I guess you did have a plan. And now they're all in jobs they don't like, And so the reason I even bring up that story is because I saw that writing in the wall. I saw enough people who were in their mid 30s, mid 40s, 50s. They took the job because it paid well, not because they were making the impact they wanted to make or that they were passionate about it. And I'm not going to say this is everybody. I'm going to say I saw enough that I did not want to go down that path. What I did not see, Chris, was I didn't see the successful entrepreneurs who were miserable. I didn't see that. All I saw was the glamorous, awesome stuff happening out there, right? The internet marketing guru who's got the fancy car and he seems like he's just always on vacation. Mm-hmm. I saw that. I didn't see the bad side of it. And so I started to build a business, an online business. We did the first 2 weeks of launch. We did $140,000 in the first 2 weeks. It was a launch. And then that first year it was several $100,000, and we built that business up to where it was doing $400,000 to $500,000 a year for your first 3 to 4 years. And I was netting into the six figures as a young kid. And I was pumped. I had the flexibility to go on trips. I had the flexibility to go work where I wanted to work, at the coffee shop or in my underwear at the kitchen table, like the guru said I could. We had a good product. It worked well. People enjoyed the product. I had a very, very small team, but no employees. It was a business partner and an assistant, and then some contractors. And from the outside in, man, it's like I had it made. And frankly, I did. In hindsight, I wasn't grateful, right? I wasn't grateful. I didn't have gratitude. I didn't revel in that success or that achievement and realize, man, I achieved what I had set out to achieve 3 years ago. No way. Like, no way I figured out how to make 10 grand a month, because I looked at those people who were doing that going, oh my gosh, what did you figure out in this world? And who did you have to kill to find that out? Because it took me 3 years, two or 3 years to figure out how to even make the first 3 or 4 grand a month. It wasn't 2 months or 3 months. You guys are fast. Like, I'm slow, and it just takes me a while. And so I worked in that business for the first couple of years, and I'm like, man, everything was new. Everything was interesting. But what happens, Chris, when everything is not new and interesting? What happens when you go into the mode where you're not in startup mode anymore? Now you've got to maintain the thing, and now you've got to find ways to keep it fresh. And that's usually about 2 to 3 years in. And that's what happened is the newness had worn off, and I didn't figure out what gives me energy. Like, what do I love about my work and what do I not love about my work? What gives me energy when I'm done doing the thing versus drains my energy when I'm doing it? What do I try to avoid, even if it makes me money, because I just don't want to do it and it drains the energy? And what do I find myself doing or even not doing because I can't justify it, doesn't make me money, and everyone tells me I should just focus on the things that make money better? You start to believe this advice. You start to take advice where people say your unique ability or your unique genius or genius zone or whatever it is what people, and someone told me this back in 2011, and it was not bad advice. I think it was misguided. They said, Trevor, you're going to know what your genius zone is when people tell you you're really good at it and they pay you well to do it. And he's like, as soon as that happens, keep doing that more. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm getting paid well to do this. And everyone's telling me I'm really good at that thing. And I kept doing it. And what happened for me, Chris, I kept getting more miserable. I kept not wanting to wake up in the morning to do the work for the business I had created for myself. And one day I remember, I've told this story, but one day I remember laying there in bed after my daughter was at daycare, my wife was at work, and I should have been working. But I was laying there at 10, 30, 11 o'clock in the morning, looking up the ceiling going, I just don't want to do any of the work. I don't want to do it. And it's the weirdest thing, because if you'd have asked me 3-4 years before that, if I had the opportunity to realize I had a business that was making well into the 6 figures, that was profitable, and I could do it from anywhere, I would have thought it was a dream. And so here's where I made this shift. And I think this is where it's valuable for everybody, is if you have a job and you're in it and you're like, you know what, I'm just not getting the juice out of this job anymore. I feel like I'm just showing up and punching a time clock. I feel like I'm just showing up for the paycheck, but my passion's not there. And I don't know what to do to move towards my passion. Or if you have a business, if you're an agent, an investor, whatever it is, and you have the same thing, you know what, man, I reached those initial goals I had set. I was running away from something before. I had this motivation running away from a job I didn't like, an income ceiling I didn't like, whatever it is. And now I'm not running away from that anymore. Now I don't know what to run towards. I don't have motivation that is going to drive me in a direction. So I'm maintaining, and I feel like there's something missing. Then what I had to do there, Chris, was this, and I'll toss it back over to you, was number one, recognize that you're in that spot and recognize that you don't have to stay there, that we can choose to make a shift. We can choose to rebuild something that's even better the next time. And not only could we choose, I think we should choose that. We need to sit down and write down, and this is what I did back in 2012. We need to sit down and write down on a piece of paper what I ended up calling my non-negotiables. And that was what changed my life. As I sat down and said, number one, is it possible that this could be better? And I said, heck yeah, it could be. There's no way that all entrepreneurs are this way. There's no way that the entrepreneurial dream is not real. It's real. I think I just did it wrong the first time around. And so then I said, well, let me write down the things I don't like about the business this past 3 to 4 years. And I had a whole list, right? It's like inconsistent income, unpredictable. I don't like that a lot of the work I'm doing drains my energy and I hate it. On down the line. Now, right, the things that I did like about the business. Well, I liked these things about it, and it wasn't as many things. And then I said, well, let's look at the things that I didn't like, and what are the ones that are the most important? I picked 5. I said, any business I ever run in the future has to not do those things. And some advice I got years ago, that one of the best ways to find what you do want is to, first of all, acknowledge what you don't want.
Yeah.
And I didn't want inconsistency and unpredictability. I didn't want a business that wasn't fun at its core. I didn't want a business that was hamster wheel and was not building a long-term asset that was just built off of transactions. I didn't want a business that was built on me working on stuff that drained my energy. And last, I didn't want a business that required me to have split focus on 4, 5, 6, 7 different businesses, thinking I'm a serial entrepreneur. And so I flipped it and looked at the opposite of those. And it was, I wanted a focus on one big thing, not 14 businesses, one that I could go deep on. I wanted to have a business that was fun, that was consistent and predictable. I wanted a business that I could focus in my unique abilities more often than not. And I wanted a business where I could build an asset, a valuable asset. And I took that list, Chris, and I said, okay, what do I need to do with this now? And I looked at my company and I said, can I make this business that? And I just like, I don't think I want to make this business that. So I talked to my business partner. We had a good, hard conversation. And I said, man, I love you. I don't want to have any ill will here. We're like really good friends. And I said, you give me a number. Like, just give me a number and I will say yes to it. No matter how low it is or no matter how high, I will say yes. And he gave me a number that was way lower than I was expecting, way lower than he paid less than half of what I would make in a calendar year in my profits in my half. And I gladfully said yes. He wasn't taking advantage of me. He just didn't know any better. None of us had bought or sold a company before.
Right.
And then he said, can I pay you over 5 years? And I said, yes.
Sure.
Yes. And once that move was made, it cleared the deck for me. I'm like, okay, deck is cleared. I don't have that business anymore. I don't have a lot of income either. But now I've got my 5 non-negotiables and I get a chance to rebuild things from the ground up. So that's kind of where the second chapter started.
Thank you for sharing that. That's super powerful. And that I resonate with that a lot. I mean, I just recently heard another one of your podcasts, probably a couple of years old at this point, but what you just said there about around the 2 to 3 year mark where you start getting a little bored and the newness has worn off a little bit. Like I can feel that for myself where I'm trying to figure out how do I get excited about it again? Because I have the days where I wake up and I'm like, I see the missed call from a client on my phone. I'm like, I don't want to call this person. Yeah. I'm not ready to have that conversation yet. But how do you generate it? So I know that it takes finding out what you don't want. I wrote that down. Acknowledge what you don't want or what you don't like about your business so that you can flip it and figure out what those non-negotiables are for you. Yeah. And then maybe even for someone in real estate or some transaction related business, the non-negotiables might be like a type of client or communication style. And so knowing what doesn't fit, you can always refer that kind of business out and stick to kind of your ideal avatar who would work well with you, reduce the amount of stress that you feel during transactions or something like that. So
even on the agent side, right? And we talked about this a little bit at CarrotCamp with some of the campers there. Even on the agent side, or especially on the real estate agent side or real estate wholesaler side where it's heavily transactional, I would encourage people to not write your non-negotiables based around the current business model you have. And that's what happens with a lot of us is we go, well,
tunnel vision.
I'm afraid to write this down because I don't see how that's possible being an agent or being a wholesaler. And I want you to write down what would make you happy. And then go, well, how do I build that now? And so consistency and predictability or a valuable asset. How do you do that as an agent or an investor? Well, you take your active income and you put it into something that's valuable and can grow and be an asset. You put it into maybe building a business that does that, where processes and people do that, and you could sell it if you wanted to. Or you put it into real estate that cash flows and kicks that out. Then eventually your cash flow replaces your active income. And then now you're working because you want to, not because you have to. And so that's where we get to kind of map that out, where don't put boxes around what your current business model is. I wouldn't even do my non-negotiables specific to an industry or a business. I probably wouldn't put it specifically for like this type of a client as an agent, but you could put only want to work with people that fire me up. That applies for any business, right? Yeah, and if that's one of your non-negotiables that's going to carry forward to any business you ever run, amazing. Build your real estate agent business to fit that perfectly.
Oh, that's awesome. And what would make you happy? I think a lot of us, like we've talked about earlier, we chase the money, we chase the commissions or the paychecks or the big deals, the big clients, and we don't stop to wonder what would make us happy. And that's what causes us to take on clients, take on work, say yes to things that maybe are our energy drainers, right? And you talk about your energy audit on your show, and I know we could talk about that here as well. Yep. That's a great exercise for identifying what are the things that I'm doing that drain me, and how do I do more of what gives me the energy? So,
dude, let's go into that topic. Actually, if you're game, let's go into that topic because it's a perfect segue. So around that time, I got my 5 non-negotiables, and one of those non-negotiables was work within my unique abilities, right? And so I'm sitting there without a primary business now. I was doing consulting on the side, and I still had some money coming in from some affiliate stuff. I had and still have rental income coming in, but I've never made a cent from rental income because I don't have enough rentals for that. Mm-hmm. All the money goes into the bank account and it pays for repairs and it's reserves and it's just sitting there. I've never taken a dime out. So in that respect, you should get far more rental units than I have to make it actually amazing for you. It will be amazing once I get it all paid off.
Yeah.
But so I looked at that list and I said, well, where do I start? Well, first of all, I need to figure out a business model that's going to help me to give these. And during that period of time, that three years before, when I had started to get a little bit bored, was starting to kind of dabble and look at other opportunities, I'd invested in a couple companies. Now that might sound fancy, but it was literally like $5,000 in this one and $5,000 in this one. And they were both software companies. They were both owned by the same guy, and still amazing friends with them today. One of them failed that I thought was going to be my business. So I looked at this and I said, software does that. It's recurring. It's valuable. It's like, oh, that's amazing. I think I could be excited about that. And so I went into business with him, and we dissolved that after about a year because I owned a very, very minority stake, but I was doing all the work in business A, and I invested in business B, and that was where his passion was. But I only owned 20% of business A, and I was doing all the work, and it was ground zero. We had $500 a month in revenue. And so I'm looking at it going, oh shoot, I'm going to be building something valuable for him, and I'm doing all the work, but not for me. And so we negotiated. We couldn't figure out how to make that work. We dissolved that company. He continued growing the other company, and it's amazing now. Like, I still own a part of that company called salesmessage.com. It's growing really, really fast, multiple millions a year in revenue. It's awesome, but it took years to get there. And so I looked at the unique abilities part and said, okay, I have no clue what my unique abilities are. No clue what to even look at, because these things here, I'm good at them, but I don't like them. And I just had no clue anymore what I should even put down there. And I have a friend called named Greg Clement. And Greg is about 4 or 5 years ahead of me, became a mentor and friend. He is very successful in business. He owned a software company. He's a real estate investor. He just bought a golf course recently. He owns this big, huge, like, adventure farm. And he's coaching his kids' football teams. He goes to this office on Monday and Wednesday for half the day. And he gets to kind of blow in and blow out, give his strategy, and goes to the farm on, Tuesday and Thursday, does strategy there. And I'm like, dude, that sounds amazing. I just want your job. And at that time, I'm like, I want your life. You're a man of faith. And it just seems like everything from the outside, and you got it together, know? And so I ended up signing up for the first mastermind that I'd ever signed up for. Is a big check. And people have to realize how big of a check that was for me at that time, because my income went from multiple six figures a year. And I had some money saved up, but not a lot. It's like maybe 150, 200 grand in money saved up in the bank. In this mastermind is $20,000. And I'm like, if I got to stroke a check to be closer to him and meet up with him 4 times a year to kind of see what the secret sauce is, I'm going to do that. Even though my income went to $27,000 a year after I parted ways out of the company. Taxable income, 27 grand in 2011, I think it was 2011, 2012. So I show up to the first mastermind. He starts talking about unique ability. And he said, man, the biggest thing that transformed things for him was finding his unique ability. I'm like, I'm at the right place. Like, show me the way, And he said, I learned it from a guy named Dan Sullivan, called a company called Strategic Coach. He joined his program. He suggested we do. So I did. It was $6 grand a year at that time. And I started showing up to Strategic Coach, where once a quarter we'd fly to Chicago, and they'd walk us through this process to plan our business and pull ourselves out of the business as much as we wanted to. And it was on like session 3 where I still had not figured out my unique abilities, Chris. I bought the book literally called Unique Abilities from Dan.
Still didn't figure it out.
I read it. Yeah. I'm like, I still have not figured this out.
Know.
This one nugget the gal said, well, she probably said it before. I probably read it before. Timing just didn't hit me right. Mm-hmm. She said, you'll know your unique abilities when it's the things that you have more energy when you're done doing the things than when you started. I'm like, oh, that sounds simple. And she said, just make a list of those things and don't care how much money they make you. I'm like, okay, awesome. So I made a list. I'm like, I love strategy. Like, I get energy from strategy. I get energy from going to the whiteboard and sitting with my team and just like strategizing a marketing plan or an attack on the market, whatever it is. I love it. I love working out. It gives me energy. I like doing these things, talking with smart people, entrepreneurs. I love this stuff. It gives me energy. There's a whole list of other things. And I wrote them down. I'm like, whoa, I'm not doing hardly any of these things right now. And so I created a process called the Energy Audit that you had mentioned, Chris, where I said, and this was the big shift for me. What if I shift my work rather than from trying to be productive and rather than trying to optimize for revenue and income and how much money each hour makes me? What if I shifted it to how much energy my work gives me? And what if I did more energy work, it actually might make me more money too? And I said, let me run this experiment for this next company, which became Carrot. And I wrote that list and I said, well, let's take it to the next level. And you guys can get the full Energy Audit worksheet. Just go to carrot.com/energy. There's no opt-in, nothing. Just go get it. Carrot.com/energy. And it's a line down the middle of the paper. On the left side, you write energy drains. On the right side, you write energy gives. And I want you to go through and write, what are all the things in an average week that would drain your energy, life or business? Okay. Anything at all, like anything. It could be, I don't like writing emails. I don't like doing, buyer appointments or whatever it is that comes up for you. I don't like checking email. I don't like doing meeting, like all this stuff. Okay. On the other side, write down what gives you energy, especially if you're not doing it right now. And that's the key. I wasn't working out at the time. Man, I really do enjoy going outside and working out. I like going out on the river. I really love strategy, but I'm not doing a lot of it. I'm mostly doing tactical execution. And you have this whole list of stuff. And then at the bottom, I said, well, what if I could measure this? And if I can measure what percentage of my average week is in energy draining versus energy giving, maybe I can be intentional with moving more of the energy drains to energy gives each week. And if I can move it towards 80% of my time energy giving, how will my world change? Will my income go up? Will I be happier? And I didn't really care about the income at that point. And so I looked at my percentage. I'm like, oh, shoot, 80% of my time right now is energy draining. No wonder I'm not liking my work. Right? It's like, no wonder I didn't like my work. If 80% of my time was doing these things that drain my energy, 20% was energy giving. And then I said, well, let me just circle the things that drain my energy the most, the first one or two, write down how many hours a week I'm spending on those one or two things. And then now let me say, well, let me replace that time with something that's giving me energy that I'm not doing enough. And that's my action item at the start of the quarter every quarter, is doing the energy audit, circling the one or two things that drain my energy the most. How many hours per week am I spending on them? Add those hours up. Let's say item number 1 is writing blog posts, 5 hours a week. Okay, cool. Item number 2 is check emails, 7 hours a week. Awesome. That's 12 hours a week right there, adding the 2 up. What if I could gain back 12 hours in my week? And then over here, what if I'm not working out because I think I don't have time? And I go, man, let me just work out an hour a day. So that's 5 hours of that 12 hours I'm gaining back with energy. And this other thing, I love podcasting, but I have no clue how I'm going to make money doing it. Who cares? Okay. I just want to do it for energy. Bam. I'm replacing email checking and writing blog posts with doing a podcast and working out. And you just make that the start of your action item. What processes do I need to create? What do I need to delegate? First part in the quarter.
So you do that every single quarter.
Years, man, I flip-flopped it. 80% awesome. Energy drained, 80% energy gives. And it changed from there.
That's amazing. So this is an exercise you said you do every single quarter, just repetitively or repeatedly?
Yep, I do it every quarter. There definitely have been some quarters I've missed, and okay. I can feel it. What happens, Chris, is I'll look back on, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm all over the place now to energy drain. And I'll look back and go, I didn't do my energy audit. I had rebuilt back up some energy drain activities, and I wasn't intentional removing them. And right. So those are the times when it gets me. I'll either do it at the quarter or I'll do it reactively, noticing, why is my energy so low? Why am I not enjoying my work weeks for too many weeks in a row? And then I'll pull up the energy audit.
It kind of reminds me of that. I think it's a Steve Jobs quote where he says something along the lines of, every day when I wake up, if I don't feel like doing something for too many days in a row, I know I need to change. Dude. Something along those lines. Right. And that's exactly right. Cause you get that feeling of something's off. I'm not sure. I'm not super excited about what I'm doing. And that is a great time to pull that energy audit out and just write down all the things. What are you spending your time on? Yeah. And you should be able to go back for those listening. You should be able to go into your calendar and see all those things. Because if you're not doing that, then you have no idea. You're kind of just blowing around with the wind. If you actually put your activities in the calendar, I can look back and say, hey, today I talked with Trevor. That gave me energy.
Yep.
Maybe the next day I talked to this rude client who I've been wanting to fire, but I haven't done it. And that drained my energy. Right. So when I do that activity frequently, it can be more than a quarter, I'm sure as well, every few weeks or so, you can start to realign and say, and that for me, that was something too. Podcasts give me energy. I told my podcast manager, let's get a bunch of interviews down. And then she booked me 4 interviews every Tuesday for the next 3 months. And then I started to find out okay, I'm getting a little drained. Maybe we're doing too many. We should slow it down, do 1 or 2 podcasts a week instead of 4 or 5. So it's a constant tweaking, I guess, to figure out what actually lights you up and what's that sweet spot.
Dude, it is for sure. Cause just like with everything, we evolve, right?
Right.
Like there might be people listening to this where they're in their first couple of years of starting a company. Well, you're going to get energy from most anything you do in that first couple of years because it's new, because you've got the motivation of what you're trying to run away from. And that's what we have to remember. If you can imagine 2 scenarios of you running, okay, physically running. Scenario number 1 is someone tells you, hey, go out there and just start running. And you're like, oh man, you're pretty quick. You're probably going to feel tired and all that kind of stuff. Right. But now let's say, because you don't have something you're going towards, someone just says, start running, and you're probably going to quit. after a little while, because you don't know where you're going towards. There's not the motivation to go or stop or keep going or whatever. I'm just going to stop when I think I get tired. Scenario number 2, there's a lion behind you. You're going to have more energy than you possibly ever. You're not even going to worry about the energy you're expending because there's a freaking lion behind you, right? Like you've got this motivation that's driving you that you're running away from. And that's what happens when we start something is we have that motivation where we're pumped to stay up until 1, 2, 3 in the morning to get this startup. We're learning fast. And it goes back to that 2 to 3 year time period, maybe 2 to 4 for some people that I mentioned, Chris, is once we get things to where we don't have the lion running away from us or running behind us anymore, then we didn't replace it with a new vision that excited us, the energy starts to go away easier. And so that's the key. We talked about that a lot at CarrotCamp is we've got to do an energy audit for sure to keep trimming out the energy drainers and adding energy givers. But also we have to make the shift. We have to make the shift to go, why am I doing this? Like what's important? Where am I going? And this happened to me, like I talked at CarrotCamp even last year, as I had a 5-year vision for our company, really excited about it. And are there moments, are there days, are there weeks where your energy is drained? Yeah, it's just life, right? But more often than not, my energy is high. But last year I couldn't peg it. I'm like, what is going on? It's like too many weeks in a row where it's just like, I felt listless. I didn't feel like I was making decisive decisions. There were some things, it just didn't feel like I was in an optimal spot. And then my coach called me on it. My coach, Dan, he's like, dude, he goes, do you have like a clear vision for where you're going? Let's say 3 years out. I'm like, yeah. Then I start blabbering stuff. He's like, is it written? And I go, no, we're pretty much finishing up our 5th year and our 5-year vision over here. And then he's like, dude, you ran out of runway. He said, you ran out of runway on your vision. And when you run out of runway on your vision, what's going to happen is you're going to get distracted and crash. And I'm like, yeah, this is what's happening. And so I had to get really clear and something that was exciting for me, a very clear vision to run towards for the next 3 years.
So don't run out of runway on your vision. I love that.
Yep. And that's personally too. So if you have a job, what happens when someone's 5, 6 years into a marriage, when you first get married, you have a very clear vision. It's gonna be an amazing marriage. And I can totally picture myself having kids and that's your vision, right? We're gonna have kids at this point. We're gonna be really happy, You have the kids, you get 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 years in. What is the vision next? Especially in that 7 to 10 year period, because you're probably not retiring in 5 years. Right. So you're in that period where it's like, what is that next vision with your marriage? Well, oftentimes many marriages fail at that point because of that, because there's not a clear vision for what is next. And now with jobs, the same thing. We get pumped about the new job we got and it's fresh and it's exciting. And then we get 2 years in, we're like, oh, damn, either the business didn't serve us well, which we're guilty of this sometimes as well. No one's immune. Either the business didn't serve you to help coach you to connect you with the company's vision, or the company doesn't have a vision, which is even worse. Or you're like, you know what? I just don't see how this fits in with my life vision, or you don't have a life's vision. And that's what's most common is most people have no clue what their own personal vision is. They have no clue what their vision story is. And how can you ever know if you're in the right job? And also next, Chris, how could you ever make a change in your careers and be confident about it if you don't have a vision for where you want to go? And that's where so many people are stuck in their lives. And I'd love to be a lightning bolt to help people get out of that.
It's super helpful just to be cognizant of for all of us. I share that in my story, and I know we're kind of at the end of our 45 minutes here too. I've been looking at my Apple Watch. I set a timer.
Dude, you're good. But, I'm the one that's been yakking.
Oh, dude, I love it. It's super helpful stuff. And that's why I really wanted to get you on the show, because just connecting with you and going to CarrotCamp and getting to have those little conversations about the branding and how you came up with the name. I knew you have so much knowledge in you. And I just want to make sure I'm able to extract that for the audience and just tap into it, because I appreciate that you said I'm ahead of my years for being 30, but I feel I'm still so behind, I know 18-year-olds that are where I am now. And I'm like, there's that comparison thing again.
Well, it might be in one or two ways, right? They might be ahead of where you are in this one factor, this one measurement, money or whatever, but you're way ahead of them in this other spot. And so it's tricky. We have to weigh what's actually most important. And am I doing good there or not?
Yeah, this is something like I meet with a therapist, life coach every 2 weeks, and we're talking about, and she always starts off with, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm feeling meh again. Life's good. Like I have everything I want, but I feel like I'm behind. This is something that we all struggle with. And so we
Mm-hmm.
just have to be aware and just do these things. And I love that example you said, running. We're usually running from a lion at first, or, maybe that job we don't like or whatever it is. And we need to think of where we want to run towards, because when that vision dries up or we run out of runway, that's when we start to get, bored or listless, I think is the word that you used.
Yep.
But in the story that I share, same thing. I worked in oil and gas. I thought I made it. This is what I wanted to do. I had never once, I was 23 or something, never once in my life really thought, what do I actually want and where do I want to go? Yep. I mean, that's a lot of years on the planet to not really have any thought of what you want to do. And that's what so many people fall into that trap. And of course, once you leave and you go down the entrepreneur path and you read all the self-help books and Ambition by Seth Bueckley, and you meet people like you, Trevor, that's when you start to question the quote unquote norms that society tells us we should go down. Oh, you should get a job. You should do this, get a promotion, get married, have 2.5 kids or whatever, Yep. So creating your own path. But since we are kind of at the end of our time, I wanted to see, is there anything that we missed or anything you'd like to add? I mean, you covered so many great points and I really appreciate your time, Trevor.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that we could dive into, but if I were to kind of wrap one thought as this is, and this is me saying it from a perspective of not having figured it out, but having recognized it, and it's way better in my life than it was before. The biggest thing that I've discovered over the years, and I still wrestle with, is not having the if-then complex, not having the, if I achieve this, then this will be better in my life. If I find the spouse, then I'll finally be complete. If I make $100,000 a year, then I'll finally, feel accomplished or whatever it is. Because what happens is if we hold our joy for this moment in the future, which may or may not happen, what's actually going to happen is we'll hit that moment and realize that doesn't actually unlock it. What can unlock it is what we can do today. There's a principle called Ikigai that I learned years ago, and you guys can look it up, Ikigai. There's a graphic on Google Images. And Ikigai is essentially this ancient Japanese term for kind of getting in flow, right? It's like when you're in flow, you feel good, you feel happy, you feel awesome, right? You feel momentum, you're contributing well. It's awesome. You're doing things you enjoy. And there's 4 parts of Ikigai. The first one is, are you doing things that you love to do? You can't be in flow if you don't love what you're doing there. Number 2, am I doing something that I'm good at, or I could be really good at, right? You've got to be good at the thing to be in flow. Number 3, is it something that the world needs? Does the world actually need the thing I'm doing? If I'm producing something the world doesn't need, I feel useful or useless then. And then the last part is, can I actually make money at doing this, or can I earn an income or make a living doing the thing? And what happens with oftentimes, Chris, where we're living in 2 or 3 of those, and we feel, man, I'm nailing the income side. The world needs what my product puts out. I can make money doing it, and I'm pretty darn good at this. Why am I not pumped and happy? Maybe I need to do more. It's because we need to work more of what we love into the business. And that's where the energy comes in. That's where not caring what makes us money, but what gives us energy and joy is far more important than earning the extra buck. Absolutely. And so I just want you guys to think about that and go through the energy audit. And it probably is easy from a guy who has achieved those financial goals to say, oh yeah, of course you can say that, Trevor, because you've done that, right? But I can also just as confidently say that I don't have any measurable extra value in my life from the extra zeros in my bank account. And there's often many times, Chris, where I'll be in a week where I just had energy drain. I'm like, man, it'd be so nice just to go get a job. Just to punch the time clock and I could just go home. And then I snap out.
That. How do you turn your brain off? It just never goes off anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly. Then I snap out of it. I'm like, well, I wouldn't be able to make the impact I'm making. And I'm pumped about it. And
I wouldn't like when that boss told me what to do and they made me focus on some TPS report.
Exactly. I zero back into the vision. But
exactly,
dude, I could talk all day long on this kind of stuff. And I appreciate you.
I love it.
Inviting me on too.
For sure. It was great having you on here. I mean, I took a lot of notes, even though I've heard you talk about a lot of this through a lot of your different episodes, and just connecting with you again at CarrotCamp. So everyone, make sure to go dive into Trevor's world, get the energy audit, carrot.com. /energy to get that. And where can our audience go to connect with you? Your social media, your YouTube? I'll drop all the links in the show notes.
Yeah, dude, for sure. So probably Instagram is probably the best spot. So just Trevor.Mauch, M-A-U-C-H. I answer all my IG over there, and I'm following Chris like the rest of you guys are over there. And then the next thing, the CarrotCast. So just go to CarrotCast.com and you can see the past episodes, or just pull CarrotCast up on Spotify or Apple iTunes or whatever, wherever you guys listen to podcasts.
It's such a good podcast, everybody. And I don't even know how I found you. I might have just typed in real estate or mindset or something. And for those listening who aren't in real estate, Trevor talks about a lot of things outside of real estate, like the mindset and just not getting caught up in the dollars. And I'm so happy that I found that message, man, because I was chasing that path to nowhere of trying to make more and more money and burning myself out. Yeah. And now I might have gone the other extreme where I'm like, I don't need money. I'm going to live in the mountains and just relax.
Yeah.
So just Energy Audit is a great exercise for it. But Trevor, thank you once again for your time. I'll let you know as soon as this goes live, and everyone make sure to go connect with Trevor and check out the CarrotCast.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you. Hey everyone, Chris Bello here. Just wanted to thank you real quick for listening to the show, whether you're listening on podcast or YouTube or wherever it is that you may be listening. I wanted to make that quick offer about real estate help. I am in the real estate business. That is my main business, and how I make all my income and my living by helping others buy, sell, rent, or invest in real estate across the nation. If you have any questions at all, go to chrisbello.com/real estate. Again, that is chrisbello.com/real estate. I'd love to see if I can help you out in my markets. And maybe if you're in a market outside of the ones that I'm focusing on right now, I'd love to connect you with a real estate professional who can help fulfill whatever needs or services that you are requiring. So again, go to chrisbello.com/real estate. A great thing is when I connect you with a vetted professional, if I'm not able to help you myself, is whenever a transaction closes, I'm actually able to get a referral commission. So that can be a great way of thanking me for my content. It helps to support the show, and it helps me to continue to spend time bringing on amazing guests, doing these great interviews, spending a lot of time on creating content, and making sure that I can bring you the very best information that you need to grow professionally, emotionally, intelligently, and in every single area. You know, we're all working on getting better at everything. And so my focus and expertise is in real estate. I'd love to be the one to help you again. If you're not interested in that, no worries at all. Please continue to listen to the show. Make sure you leave a review. It helps so much in getting new followers and sharing the message. And thank you once again for being a listener. I'll catch you on the next episode.